The Ink and Paint Club podcast is intended for mature audiences only, so don't tell your parents! Listener discretion is advised.
Okay.
You should have given him something.
I didn't have anything,
give him something out of the fridge, give him some leftovers.
I don't think I'm allowed to do that.
Give him some fucking ketchup packets or something. Something sealed.
I don't have ketchup packets. I have a bottle of ketchup.
Well,
what am I, an animal?
Give him the whole bottle of ketchup. Give him some full rotisserie chickens.
I wish I had a rotisserie chicken just to give away. That rotisserie chicken is mine.
You're listening to the Ink and Paint Club podcast, a proud member of the Geekly Grind Podcast Network.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Ink and Paint Club podcast. My name is JD, and I am joined by Matt.
Children of the night.
Strange. There are no vampires in this thing we're going to talk about.
No, but there is bats.
That's true. It's close enough. Batman did fight Dracula at one point.
Oh, that's true. He did.
Yes, we are wrapping up October with a final Halloween-themed subject, and this week we're going to be talking about the two-part Batman: The Long Halloween film series that has come out this year. It technically came back when part one was in June, part one was July, but because it centers around Halloween and other holidays around the year, we figured we'll just push it back to October, so that'd be a good time for it. But yes, so I'm gonna be real upfront about this. I have never read the comic that this is based on. Apparently, it is a very
It's essential.
It's very much a famous comic run, and I'm honestly kind of surprised it took them this long to for DC Animation to make a movie on it.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. They've already tackled a bunch of the other really well-known ones. They've done Killing Joke. They've done Dark Knight Returns. They've done, they've hit a lot of other notable comics, and I mean, not just for Batman, but for other of the heroes in the catalog as well. Although I'm on the same page as you, though. I've never read Through the Long Halloween. The only landmark Batman stories that I have read that I actually own are I've read Killing Joke. I've read and owned Killing Joke, and then it's the same for Year One was the other one. But I haven't watched the movies they did of either of those yet. Actually,
I think I don't remember if we did an episode on the Killing Joke. I want to say yes, because I went and saw it in the theater.
You did.
Yeah, and yeah, that. I always wondered how they were going to turn that into a movie, because that comic isn't really that long.
I've heard that they
there's a lot of added stuff that was unnecessary.
A lot of filler. I heard that Batman has sex with Batgirl
on a rooftop, and it's disgusting.
But they got Mark Hamill and Kevin Conroy, right?
They sure did. Neither of which are in this. No,
but I mean, the voice cast in this is pretty good. I think they fit all the characters they play very well.
Yeah, I'm not against anyone that's in this. Everyone, is I don't know who a lot of these people are. Jensen Ackles is Batman, and apparently he's one of the characters on Supernatural, which everybody likes.
He also voiced I think he voiced Jason Todd in the Under the Red Hood movie as well, if I remember right. That's another one of the movies that I've seen too. Sure. But I saw it back when it came out. But I think that was him. If that wasn't him, that was the other guy from Supernatural. But I think that was Jensen Ackles.
Right. Troy Baker, who has been voicing Joker in the video games for a while now,
does a great job. I like him as Joker.
Yeah, honestly, I had to step back for a second. That's not Mark Hamill. I know it's not, but he's doing a pretty good impression.
It's very funny though, is that I think he's the only. I think this was in the Telltale games. I think he's the only actor that's played Batman and Joker, because he plays both of those roles in those games. I think
that's hilarious.
Yeah, no, that's great. Those fucking Batman Telltale games are great, by the way. I definitely sing their praises.
Yeah, I've never heard any bad things about those, and I've never really gotten into those Telltale games. But that is one I would be interested in checking out, or at least watching the cutscenes too, or something.
It's pretty good.
Yeah. But getting into the topic at hand, yes, we are talking about The Long Halloween, the film adaptation here. DC does. I would say it is more hit than miss with DC's animated films. They're usually at least fun or at least like well made enough. And I would say this movie is pretty well made. It's got that kind of, I don't remember which. I think we were talking about this in the Mortal Kombat review, where Warner Brothers Animation for direct to video movies lately have been doing like this heavy black outline, just very interesting line weight kind of character design in that, and it does carry over to this.
Yeah, like it's definitely those two Mortal Kombat movies. And then from what I didn't watch Injustice yet, but from the trailer that I saw, it seems to do the same thing there. And then and this as well.
Yeah, and apparently this isn't like, so for the longest time, all the DC direct-to-video movies were in continuity with each other. But after they did like the Justice League Apocalypse War movie, that ended that continuity. And now we're in a new continuity. So apparently this is in continuity with the Superman Man of Tomorrow movie, which I did watch and was all right, and does have that art style, and the recent Justice Society movie, which I have not watched.
I heard that one was pretty good, but yeah, I haven't checked out either of those either. In fact, I think the last DC animated thing I watched it's probably Red Sun. That was like the last one we recorded, or that was the last one we talked about, right?
Yeah, I think so.
That might have been like the last DC animated, which is not to say that I'm not interested in watching them. It's just I kind of don't get around to watching them just because, by the time we do one podcast, I'm already on to watching something else. I do recreationally watch other stuff, not for the podcast, but usually it's like other non-animated stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You got to fill the gap.
Yeah. But yeah, so I gotta say, this movie is not, I mean, it's a 2-part movie spread over 2.5-hour long movies. I don't know if it needed to be this long. But I do appreciate that the fact that they did give it this long to really, I assume, give justice to the comic book story that they're adapting.
Yeah, I think something like this, where it's like you were saying earlier with Killing Joke, which is like it's not like it's standard comics, like what an issue is like 32 pages or something. I think Killing Joke was like a bit more than that, but I mean, you get to something like this, Long Halloween, which is like I think 13 issues,
right?
So something like that's you're adapting it, like you don't want to cut out too much, like especially for such a famous Batman story, like.
Mm-hmm. No, yeah, and I mean, and this does carry like over a year of in Batman's life, from Halloween to Halloween, and it is dealing with this serial killer that Batman is trying to track down, who is dubbed Holiday because every major holiday, someone is found murdered in the same way, usually with the gun that they were murdered with and some kind of object relating to that holiday they were murdered on next to the body. And Batman spends an entire year trying to track down who this is. And it's a very interesting. I see with Batman, I for some reason find it more interesting when he is dealing with just like the mob, and it's like Batman versus the mob, and there's a lot of like mob family stuff in this, and so that part I actually enjoyed. And there is like peppering of like his actual like bad guy rogues gallery characters that come in here for more set pieces and all that, but otherwise it's a pretty like grounded story for the most part.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's actually the coolest part about this movie, and it being in 2 parts, is pretty much like that whole first half of. When I refer to the movie, I'm just going to refer to it as the whole 3-hour experience. So, sure. First half of the movie, which is part 1, mostly just deals like with him and like like mobsters and stuff, and then the Joker's there, but then like you get to the second part where all these family members start getting wiped out, and like the kookier like Batman's villains get like sprung from Arkham, and then like it's kind of like the turning point in like Arkham or in Gotham, where it's just like that's like in the comics, it was originally like he just fought mobsters, and then his trademark villains got introduced, and then they just kind of get replaced over time. So it's fun to actually see it happen, like gradually as the movie goes on, like they're just being like, kind of the super villains are outweighing like the traditional mobster villains and stuff.
Right. Yeah.
And
So
yeah, and it's just one of those things where they they do a really good job of characterizing like the Falcones and the Maronis and stuff, because typically like when you think of like the mobsters in movies and stuff, they're pretty like one note. Like in Batman related stuff, traditionally, because they tend to focus on the supervillains and stuff, you don't get to see too much of it. In some of the movies, like Batman Begins and that sort of thing, like they kind of pay a bit more attention to it there. But
Sure,
for the
yeah.
most part nowadays, like it was since at least the 90s and probably it's the late 80s since this came out, basically.
yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's building this mystery about like Batman is working with Commissioner Gordon and pre Two-Face Harvey Dent, of like trying to track down this murderer, because this person is like murdering members of the Falcone family, just like one by one. And every time Batman thinks he has a lead on like who it is, that person either dies or has a reason that they can't be the killer. Like at the end of the first part, we're like pretty much like led to believe that like, oh, Joker is the holiday killer. But even like Joker even states outright, it's like, I'm not the holiday killer. I'm trying to weed out the competition.
Yeah.
So I mean, and that's nice, because I think like making Joker the serial killer would be way too obvious. But you're like, okay, well, maybe it's members of the actual Falcone family, because there's reasons that they could have something against the family head. Maybe it's Harvey, because in the second half he does actually go full Two-Face and goes fully crazy.
I do like that they wait like quite a while before that actually happens, though. It's kind of like in Christopher Nolan's Dark Knight, where I think it's like only the last like half hour they do any of this shit with Two-Face.
Something like that. Yeah, it's pretty late into the movie. But that is a kind of a double-edged sword with anytime they use Harvey, because it's like anytime Harvey Dent shows up in something, you're just waiting for the time that he turns into Two-Face.
Yeah, pretty much.
Like, okay, is it gonna happen now? No, now. And I like that it is actually kind of peppered in throughout the movie, where you see him start to, before he goes through the physical transformation, you can see him going through the mental transformation. Because like pretty early in the movie, the mobsters like basically bomb Harvey and his wife's house, and he's sent to the hospital because of this. And you're thinking, okay, that's when he's going to become Two-Face. No, Pete, they take the bandages off his face and he's perfectly fine. But you can see that's where his mental state starts deteriorating, and you can see how, after the court scene where the mobster splashes acid in his face and finally ruins his face, you can see where he's already pretty much gone at that point.
Yeah, that was the execution of Two-Face here in relation to like the other well-known version of that, like from Dark Knight. Like I think it's done really well here, because like I said, you spend a lot more time with Harvey in this movie and seeing, the over the course of the year that happens, like, he's just, his mental state is deteriorating and he's starting to develop like what is it, like a dissociative identity disorder, I think.
Yeah.
And then just to actually see like that, he wasn't like getting the acid splashed on him wasn't what made Two-Face. It was what like finally just unleashed him. Like he was already brewing like for that year that led up to that moment.
Right. And something to that extent, I did like how they spent some time really showing you how Gordon and Harvey's jobs, what kind of toll that takes on their families. Because obviously we show like pretty early in the movie, like, okay, Jim is going to go take his kids that got to trick-or-treating, but the holiday killer shows up and he gets a phone call and he's like, oh, sorry, I have to go into work. And obviously like little kid Barbara is really upset about that.
Yeah.
And then you just kind of see the, like, Harvey and his wife, like Harvey really wants to start a family, but turns out apparently his wife is infertile or something, so they're not able to have kids. And Harvey keeps pressing on this, even though he's like constantly leaving to go do his job, and his wife is just left alone, and she's like constantly just stewing in all this depression. And you really just get to see what these high-ranking jobs really takes on the people around them.
Yeah. I think the other thing that's cool here too is that I believe I'm not sure if this is true for the comics as well, but I had heard that. Well, no, I guess it must be true for the comics, but this is supposed to be like also like year one is very early into Batman's career. I believe this is definitely like really early in Batman's career too, because a lot of the movie is trying to find out who the Holiday Killer is, and of course, for like a rookie Batman, like that's going to be what.
I was just gonna say, and I guess we can get this out of the way now. This is possibly one of the worst Batmans in terms of him being Batman.
Well, I mean, when you take that in consideration, that it's like a rookie Batman who's still like, trying to figure out like how to do certain shit, like, him working with Gordon and Harvey and stuff, like, and kind of strengthening his detective skills. Like that's another fun thing to see.
It's just it's funny watching Batman struggle with trying to solve something, and like honestly, like he Catwoman is in this a lot, and she's basically like Batman's sidekick to this entire thing, and I swear she's a better Batman than him.
Yeah, because I mean, yeah, Catwoman's
like she's finding out where all the mobsters are. She's like giving him all the clues that he needs,
saving him on a lot of occasions.
Yeah, and like, fuck it. There's two instances in this where I feel like, okay, come on, Batman, get your shit together. There's the first time is that like pretty much the second part of the movie opens up with Batman having been drugged by Poison Ivy because she was hired by the mobsters to basically sign over all of his assets to the Falcone family. And like, okay, that's fine if that's like that happened one time and then Batman's like trying to fight it. Apparently this took place over like 3 months.
Yeah, it's really funny. I was after I'd watched the movies, I looked up some videos to see if some people had done some videos talking about the differences between the comic and the movie to see like what all the changes they made were, and apparently that shit with Poison Ivy doesn't last that long in the comics.
Yeah, it's really weird because it like they say it takes place over about 3 months, and it's like, okay, Batman because Bruce has been drugged by Poison Ivy. Apparently, obviously, he's not going out and being Batman, so the Holiday Killer's still on the loose. And then Catwoman's like, well, you were drugged and all this, but you were like, no one suspected anything because like Bruce Wayne is still going out in public with Ivy, so obviously he's out and about. It's so fucking weird.
Yeah.
And then the other part that really bothered me for whatever reason is the part where he's fighting Scarecrow and he like Scarecrow's just to gas him in the face. But Batman has the respirator on, so like, okay, cool. He's like, and then he immediately go ahead.
He just sticks him with a fucking syringe.
Yeah, just like pulls the syringe off of him and like sticks him in the side, and then Batman like goes into a fucking fever dream for like 10 minutes, and somehow like ends up in Crime Alley somehow. Not sure how he got there, but
he hallucinated his way over there,
I guess. And then he like mistakes Catwoman for his mom, and he's like, "Where's my mom?" Fucking baby about it for like a good 10 minutes of the movie.
That's a fucking integral part to Batman's character.
You know what? I will give this movie credit. We did not have to watch the pearls drop again. That is a quintessential part of any time you watch Batman's parents die.
No, we did.
No, there was not a slow motion shot of the pearls falling piece by piece onto the ground. We saw him take the necklace, but okay. Like
I thought you meant like watching like his parents die in front of him. I didn't know that you meant specifically that.
No, and specifically watching Joe Chill tear the pearls off of Martha, and it like explodes, and you have to watch it in slow motion. Every time Batman's parent dies, it has to watch that. Like, okay, and honestly, I think we just need to put a moratorium on literally the death of Batman's parents or the death of Uncle Ben. Like, I think we as a society just know that. Like, I think you're just born knowing those things. So I don't know why we feel the need to show them anymore.
Well, listen, I mean, at least in regards to the Uncle Ben thing, we pointed this out in What If, the MCU version of Spider-Man. They haven't talked about fucking Uncle Ben at all. And the first actual on-screen mention of him was in What If. Like,
and I'm very happy about that. He's nowhere to be seen, and I'm perfectly okay with it.
Yeah. Yeah, in regards to Scarecrow too, it's I don't know. There's something very fun about seeing him paired up with Mad Hatter. Like I don't know, they seem to go hand in hand. They're very good pairing.
Yeah, and it's just like he's like just riding on a carriage with Mad Hatter to the city, and Mad Hatter's like speaking in rhyme to him, and Scarecrow's just like, what? Let's just get this fucking done, man.
Yeah.
Solomon
Grundy is around.
He is down, and I there is a part in this movie where I like, okay, but okay. There's like when they get to Thanksgiving, apparently Selena has come over for Thanksgiving, and like she and Alfred are sitting at the table, but Bruce is nowhere to be seen. And you're like thinking, oh, okay, he's just off being Batman or whatever. So obviously
he's feeding the zombies in the sewer.
Yeah. It's like, Solomon Grundy's not necessarily a bad guy. He's just like a fucking weirdo sewer zombie. He just wants to be left alone. But like, Batman cares enough to like take him some Thanksgiving dinner down to him, and I thought that was very nice.
Yeah. The first time they reveal Solomon Grundy, I swear I thought it was going to be Killer Croc.
Yeah, because they're like talking about like, okay, well, you I think he's chasing someone into the sewers, and he's like, well, you don't know what's down here, but I do. And I'm like, oh, it's obviously going to be Killer Croc's living in the sewers, but no, it's Grundy. And I'm like, okay, I can get that. I mean, big zombie makes sense for Halloween.
Yeah. Solomon Grundy want pants too. So I'll always say, whenever Solomon Grundy comes up, I'll just think of that old fucking Cartoon Network bump with the fucking...
I just want some pants. A decent pair of pants.
That's funny because whenever that an old friend of mine, he would always say that line with Solomon Grundy, but he always used to say it like Ron White from the Blue Collar Comedy Tour. Like, Solomon Grundy want pants too, and so that's how
he yells it.
Yeah, I don't know why. It's very funny to me. Just zombie Ron White.
Jeremy Snow here, owner and editor-in-chief of The Geekly Grind. I'm interrupting your awesome, regularly scheduled programming to ensure that you know about our Geekly Grind podcast network, of which this show is a treasured member of. If you haven't had a chance to check out our site, you can do so at www.thegeeklygrind.com, and while you're there, check out the other members of our steadily growing podcast family, including the anime-centric Blake and Spencer Get Jumped, discovering new heroes and comic book keepers with Chris and Lance, exploring the vast universe of geekdom with Geeksploration, or of course appreciating animation's finer details with the Ink and Paint Club. Escape your weekly grind at The Geekly Grind.
This is another one, and I don't know if in the comics this is the first instance of them doing it, but the Batman comics do a good job of taking these older villains that are really campy and goofy, and then turning them into something a little more serious. In this case, we're dealing with Calendar Man, who's not actually spoiler, is not actually Holiday because he's locked up in Arkham the entire time. Even when all the villains are broken out, he's the only one who doesn't get broken out.
Yeah.
But no, he's like almost a Hannibal Lecter kind of role this time, where like Batman goes to talk to him about like, okay, like obviously you're like a holiday themed villain. Okay, so who could be behind this? And Calendar Man is very kind of creepy and soft spoken, and he's just like feeding Batman like potentials. He's like trying to help him solve the case, but I think that's a kind of an interesting way to take Calendar Man instead of like this dude in a big red jumpsuit. He's just like a weird Hannibal Lecter dude.
Yeah, and I mean that pretty much just changed it pretty much just changed the character from that point on, because I think any other time that Calendar Man showed up, he is that type of character. The only thing that I can really bring up as a reference personally is that I know he's like that in the Arkham games, or at least it was Arkham City or Arkham Knight. It was one of those games, but yeah. I remember you can go and like actually visit him like on actual holidays, and he would like have things to say and stuff. So
yeah,
that was fun.
Yeah, so I feel like it was kind of a nice change, and I like that it ended up being like he's not the holiday killer, because obviously he's locked up the entire time. There's no way he could be doing this.
Yeah. Even though his last name is Day.
Yeah. All of the fucking Batman villains having their weird, very on point names.
Yeah.
I do like the fucking Joker's cell does not have a name on it. It just says unknown.
Yeah, you think
Because
it's
obviously
like,
nobody knows what Joker's real name is.
yeah.
And I don't ever want to know. It's fine.
Interesting note about should have probably actually brought this up when we brought up that it was a 2-part movie, but the first part of this movie is rated PG-13, but the second part is rated R.
Yeah, because they say like it's a little more intense. They swear a few times.
They get in one fuck.
They get in one. You get one fuck.
Well, I mean, no, it's rated R. They could have thrown in way more fucks.
Right.
But
yeah, I didn't know that. I didn't know the rating changed between the two.
Yeah, it was a really interesting thing to see because I mean, I know that you typically like that you might see that in like big blockbuster feature films where like something might start out as R and then dip down to PG-13 to reach like a wider audience or something. But for like animated things, like that's kind of interesting, especially for 2 movies that came out like within a month of each other.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, pretty interesting. And I don't even know necessarily because I mean I've watched it now like a few days ago, so my memory of it's already starting to kind of fade. But I mean, yeah, it seemed like there was more intense sequences and stuff. But I mean, was there really anything that would really warrant like an R rating? You think?
I'm not really sure. I don't really think so. Like, other than the fact that they swear once or twice in the second half, like, I don't think it needed to be an R. I didn't think there was any like more gore or anything that couldn't have been a PG-13. But yeah, I'm not really sure.
This is not the first R-rated animated Batman thing, right? Was it one of those other? Was it like Dark Knight Returns or one of the like Killing Joke? Was one of those rated R?
Maybe. I'm not really sure. I don't actually check the ratings on these usually, because I just assume they're always like PG-13 because obviously we want teenagers and kids to watch these because they're superheroes.
It is nice to see them branching out in that regard, though, especially like them doing the Mortal Kombat movies, and then Injustice I know is rated R because
because fucking people get ripped in half and stuff.
Yeah, it's DC but with the sensibilities of Mortal Kombat because it is what the games are. So
right.
To see that reflected in the animated version of it is neat as well. So it'll be fun to see if they start trying to branch out in that way even further and adapting some other well-known DC properties that might warrant that particular rating to keep the content of the original story the same without having to change too much to having to censor or anything.
Yeah. Now that I think about it, maybe some of the Suicide Squad animated movies were rated R. I'm not sure.
That would make sense.
Yeah. So I guess we can talk about who the actual killer ended up being. And Matt, I just want to get your opinion. How do you feel about this final twist at the end, revealing who the actual killer was?
Yeah. I mean, I thought it was okay. I mean, I wasn't upset by the reveal or anything. And in fact, it's with the motivations and everything that they kind of lay out, I think it's very fitting. And I don't know. I feel like in the comics, you probably get to spend a bit more time with that character. And because I mean, you do here in the movie as well, but it seems like well, I mean, you can go ahead and reveal it that way. We can.
Yeah. So the holiday killer ends up being Harvey's wife, Gilda. And basically her motivation is that so we learn I think somewhere towards the end of the first movie or the first half is that obviously Carmine's son Alberto apparently was in love with a woman, but she wasn't like deemed worthy for the family, so she was basically harassed and tortured until obviously the two split. And it's revealed at the end that woman was Gilda. And so basically she worked her way into Harvey's life because she felt that he would be the best way to kind of get back at this family for what they did to her. And so that's why like all the targets in that end up being killed in this are members of that family, because it's obviously she's the one going around, murdering these things. I do think there are some logistical issues. There's one specifically that I'm thinking about is on the farm when I forget which characters are going to talk to it. I think it's like one of Maroni's characters. It goes like to visit his father on a farm, and Holiday ends up killing the old man. and Maroni like chases him down. But for some reason, when he goes back, he loses Holiday, and when he goes back to his father, the Father's Day tie and the gun are laying next to his father. Like, how did Gilda circle back with enough time to put those items next to the body?
Yeah, I don't know, man. Well, I know there's a bit of an interaction there between Maroni and shit. What was her name? Falcone's kid, the daughter.
Sophia, his daughter.
Yeah, because there's the whole thing there where like, yeah, they're in a relationship, and she shows up. I don't know. There could have been some time there that we didn't see that was shortened just for pacing. I don't know. I'm sure in the comics it makes sense.
Yeah, but I mean, I do like that you do get hints of Gilda being ultimately the killer. The one clue that really kind of like it dawned on me when they finally reveal her is that there's a part, I think it's during 4th of July. Gordon, Harvey are out at the docks, like trying to like secure the location, secure the area. And Carmine and his cronies start walk by, and they like say hi, and like Harvey's like, "Oh, hey, what's up?" And he's like, "No, I was talking to your wife." And they're like, at first you think that's just a really off thing to say, and like, oh, he's just trying to fucking mess with Harvey by like not addressing him directly. But once you learn that, Carmine and Gilda know each other because he forced her out, that kind of takes on a different tone.
Yeah, definitely.
So I genuinely enjoy the mystery of this. I do think maybe it has some pacing issues because of how long of a time this is supposed to be taking over. And I get it that like thematically it makes sense for it to take place over a whole year, but like I don't know if like every single holiday needed to be really addressed all the time. I know during Batman's weird missing time, they kind of glossed over maybe like 2 or 3 of them.
Yeah.
I don't think that and again, I don't know anything about the comics, so I apologize if like this happens in the comics and they're just like doing a straight adaptation. But I don't think a lot of the Batman villains needed to be here. Like there's a point in the second half where pretty much all of Batman's main rogue gallery like bust into an office and start like fighting Batman, and there's really no reason for it.
Honestly, the only one that showed up that I felt we could have done without was Penguin shows up for a hot minute.
And he has one line.
Yeah, and it's like, okay, I get the rest of these other characters because we spent a lot of time with Joker, we spent a lot of time with Scarecrow and Mad Hatter, we spent a lot of time with Solomon Grundy, and then of course Harvey Dent's Two-Face and stuff. But the Penguin is just sort of there, and it's
we need another body for this.
I guess. I don't know. Maybe he has a bigger role in the comic story or something. I don't know. Maybe that's something that they could have shortened up a bit. That was the only one that I kind of was like thinking, well, that's kind of weird.
Apparently, Calendar Man and Penguin are voiced by the same guy, and it's David Dastmalchian. The guy, he's Kurt in Ant-Man.
Well, he's also Polka Dot Man in the Suicide Squad.
That he is, yes.
And he was also, I'm not sure if you remember this, in The Dark Knight. There was the guy that Harvey kidnaps because he thought that he was working for the Joker. Like when they're like all dressed up as the soldiers and like they fire. He plays that guy too.
Oh,
he's in like a ton of like comic shit.
Yeah, he's one of those guys you see his face like, oh yeah, I know that guy. I don't remember his name, but I know that guy.
I just recently saw him in Dune.
Yeah, he was in Dune, wasn't he?
Yeah.
In there for a few minutes.
Yeah, no, that guy's cool.
That movie was weird. But yeah, honestly, like I'm not mad. Like I'm glad I watched this movie. It's interesting to finally kind of get more knowledge on this like classic storyline. Whether or not how accurate this is to the original, I'm not sure. But I think as a movie version, I think it works. I like that they did give it 2 parts to really breathe and really flesh out this mystery. And I do like the mystery. Especially that it, like I said, it's a more grounded story dealing more with the mob than the supervillains. The supervillains are kind of like a background thing a lot of the time. And I guess like you said, like it's an early Batman, so you can see Batman kind of stumble a bit, even though he's like really kind of bad at his job most of the time. Like he's good at beating ass. But when it comes to pretty much anything else, he's like not too great at it yet. So he's still figuring at it, I guess.
Yeah, and I mean, and as far as beating ass goes, I mean, this shares, the thing with like every other DC animated thing that we talked about on the show, like, the action that's portrayed in the movie is, very well done, depending on if that's, gunfights or actually, throwing hands or,
Yeah.
so that's all very competently done.
Yeah, DC's live action movies may be pretty hit or miss, but their animation is pretty on point most of the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's another one of those things too, though, just because this story has existed since 1996, 1997, and because its influence is felt across so many different stories, like for animated adaptations of Batman and live action adaptations of Batman, it is interesting to finally see like the story itself adapted, because of course, a lot of the elements in this movie you do see pop up like in like Batman Begins and The Dark Knight, and I think a lot of the influence from this is going to be felt in the new one that's coming out, the Batman, the one by Matt Reeves. I think they're getting a lot of sort of influence for that there as well. Kind of like the direction they're taking the Riddler. It kind of seems like kind of some stuff that they're not exactly like the kind of stuff they're doing, like Holiday or whatever, but it seems to be a different type of take on the Riddler that's kind of more like it lends itself well to like a mystery. Yeah,
they if I remember right, I pretty much remember the director saying that the new Batman movie is going to be very year one inspired.
Yeah.
So very, very early Batman kind of stuff. So I'm not sure how I feel about Robert Pattinson being Batman, but I do like his weird car Batmobile.
I like what I've seen with them in the trailers so far. I definitely have high hopes for the movie proper.
It's going to beat some ass.
Yeah. Did we forget to mention that Flash and Green Arrow showed up?
Yep. So, like I said earlier, this movie essentially isn't continuity. It's not just a one-off. So I'm sure I know Flash was in the Justice Society movie that I haven't watched, so I don't know if that has anything to do with it. But yeah, Flash and Green Arrow, because it's funny because in the first part of the movie, Alfred's getting set up for trick-or-treaters, and Bruce is like, we never get trick-or-treaters out here. Because you live on the edge of town. Who's going to come out here?
Yeah.
And so I think it's fun at the after credits is just like him getting ready to send out trick-or-treaters again. And Batman's like again, we don't get trick-or-treaters out here. And the doorbell rings. It's just fucking Flash and Green Arrow hanging out. And it just ends.
Yeah. I thought that was weird. That was a weird post-credits, but yeah, I wasn't sure if that was in relation to it being in continuity with those other two movies.
I'm sure whatever movie comes next that probably has to deal with like the Justice League or whatever. They're probably like there to recruit him to the Justice League or something.
Oh yeah, well maybe. Yeah, I don't know. It's a little bit confusing now with the DC animated stuff to see like what stuff fits in where. I think you kind of need like a chart to see, like what's a one-off, what's an Elseworlds, what continues after this movie, what continues after that movie. Like, I mean, yeah, the thing people give a lot of shit like for some of the live action fare that's out there nowadays doing that sort of thing, but I think the DC animated movies are definitely on a whole nother level as far as that's in regard.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like before they did the continuity reboot, it was a mess trying to figure out like, okay, what isn't. I think so far they're being on track with everything is in continuity because they've only done like 4 movies now. Yeah. I think there's only Superman, Justice Society, and then this 2-part movie. So we'll see if it gets really convoluted again.
Yeah,
I don't know, man.
Oh wait, there was one more thing I wanted to bring up before we wrap up. So the reason why these movies came out in June and July, and then we had an internal discussion figuring out like, well, should we do these as they come out? Should we wait until the second one comes out and do these together? And then we finally decided, well, it's Batman: The Long Halloween, so maybe we just save it until October for Halloween to do it. But upon watching the movie and realizing that Halloween really kind of only plays into the the beginning and the end of the movie, and predominantly about 90% of the movie does not happen on Halloween.
Nope.
It's more that the long Halloween it's something that they refer to as a phrase. Was it Falcone talks about like a relative, like an ancestor of his, talking about the long Halloween, right?
Well, I think he was saying that his family is referring to it because like all these murders start on Halloween, like every holiday another member of his family dies, so it's like that first Halloween murder just keeps continuing.
Yeah. So the reveal that's what it's in reference to is like, yeah, it's just in hindsight now. I'm just thinking like, yeah, we probably could have covered this back when it came out.
Oh, it's fine. I mean, it's Batman. It's got a serial killer on the loose. Pretty spooky Halloween times.
I guess it does have the merits to fit underneath the spooky Halloween related banner. Besides having Halloween in the name,
spooky, scary.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, I think that'll do it for us this week. I hope everyone has a good Halloween out there. Be safe. Don't do anything stupid. Don't do anything we wouldn't do.
Yeah.
You don't know my life. You don't know what I'll do. But everybody, thank you for listening. Stay safe out there this weekend, and we'll catch you next time.
Have a happy Halloween.
Sure.
Thanks for listening. You can find all the links to our social media pages in the episode description. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter and join our Discord. You can listen to us wherever you get your podcasts. The Ink and Paint Club is happy to be part of the Geekly Grind Podcast Network. We'll see you next time.